Can you tell me the government's rationale for not wanting men living in a home where the women are receiving government assistance? Like, what's the government say
Well,
why they do what they do?
the government wants to be the father. This has all been intentional. Remove the father from the home so we can come in and we can take over. Make sure that the mother is not in the home, that the mother is working, maybe two jobs or whatever, trying to survive, so we can completely indoctrinate that child with whatever it is that we want to indoctrinate them with. So if the father is out of the home, which I think that the original structure of the nuclear family worked best for us. That's my personal opinion. The father is being the provider and the mother has the time to nurture. But when you have the father removed from the home and the mother working 40 to 80 hours a week, then what are we doing? We are sending our children to school every single day, Monday through Friday. And now that teacher has somewhat become the parent, and this school has now taken over the role of parenting. And what are they doing? They are teaching your children. They are indoctrinating your children 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And then when our children grow up and they're 16 and 17 and we're sitting across from them and we realize you don't have the same morals I do. You don't have the same beliefs that I do. You don't have the same educational background that I do. It's because we haven't taught them. We've allowed someone else to teach them. We've allowed someone else to give them their beliefs, their morals, their structure. And we'll be sitting across from our child at 16, 17 years old and not even know who that person is. And I think that it has all been very strategic.
I know you come to this understanding later on in life, right? What would you do differently as a parent if you were a brand new parent?
Homeschool. I would have cherished my relationship with the father better and known how important it was for the children to be raised in a two-parent home. I would have taken away the TV and the telephones and the video games. Anything that we give access to our children's minds can children, the first way that we learn is by modeling behavior. Children are going to emulate what it is that they see. What is it that your children are seeing and what is it that your children are hearing? That's most definitely what I would have done different. School, public school, definite no.
Two things I want you to elaborate more on, right? One, nurturing a relationship with the father, and two, the video games. Most people criticize the TV programs, but they don't necessarily speak about the impact of video games. So can you speak about what you mean more about nurturing a relationship with their father?
Well, the father is important. I think a lot of us as women and young women, we've looked at, this I don't need a man, this black feminism that has taken over. So we've gotten into these mindsets that we can just do it on our own and we don't need a man, even when we are raising young men. And so what we have done is forfeited the position of the father and the relationship of the father based off of our own selfish needs and gains. The father is just as important as the mother. If the father wasn't as important as the mother, then it wouldn't take a father and a mother to create the life. So if it takes a man and a woman to create the life, then most certainly we should believe that it should take a man and a woman to stabilize, maintain, preserve, nurture the life.
One, I'm glad to hear you say that because most women won't acknowledge that. As you mature, when did it click, though, to say, I could have done things differently? At what point in your life, if you remember?
All throughout my life, I think I've said that. But I think seeing now what has happened to the nuclear family and how this feminism movement has completely taken over and destroyed our families, destroyed our children, destroyed our generations, bloodlines. Everything right now is all about we don't need men, we are the men, abort our children, and we're definitely not headed in the right road.
All right. And talk about why you would keep the video games away.
Video games. When I was a young adult raising my children, I realized that I allowed them to partake in video games because video games for me was like a babysitter. When they were playing the video games, I was able to get a break. I was able to work on some things that I needed to. It was a babysitter, right? And what I did not realize was the world that the video games opened my children up to. Especially now where they have all of this gaming and all of these streaming. You really have no idea who your children are talking to, what they're dealing with. And the video game world is just it's another world, kind of like the world that we live in. So things that we have to do when it comes to monitoring our children, what they're watching, that stuff needs to be monitored too in video games. The exposure that they have in video games, these people have sex in video games, they do drugs, they rob, they kill, they steal. Another thing that's very important that parents need to pay attention to is the anime, right? Because your children can create a character. What type of character, right, are your children creating? I have a son who has decided that he wanted to transition at the age of 19. When I look back, I realized that every character he ever created was a female. When I never paid attention to that. It never dawned on me. I'm just like, what? I didn't realize that they are trying to make this world that is not a reality an actual reality.
Since you brought that up, in regards to the son, right? I know you have a certain view on sexualization of children. Mm. I don't know exactly your view on the trans things, right? But how was that as a parent, just as a parent, put all that other stuff, how was that a parent? How did you deal with that?
Well, I didn't, because in my house, a child is a child. So we're not even dealing with those type of decisions. I mean, as an adult, yeah, it was still traumatic for me, because you're trying to tell me that after, 19 years of raising you as a male, that all of a sudden you're a female. Now, we're going to talk about common sense. Common sense to me is absolutely not possible. But I think that it's okay. If you want to live your life that way, then you have a right to do that. But it's not okay to force someone else to live in that delusion with you. Don't force me to make myself believe that you're a woman when I know that you're a man living your life as a woman.
Do you think it's a phase, or you think this is an absolute transition? And I noticed the lesbian thing and the gay thing, bro, and a lot of it seemed like attention grabbing, in a sense, like looking for attention and confusion.
Well, it is a lot. It is a lot of attention, because a black. Okay, so I have 3 sons, and I've watched my other 2 sons, who are just straight black males, work every single day, don't get half the attention that the one does that lives his life as a woman. Not only does he not get half the attention, they don't get half the notoriety, they don't make half the money. So there is an agenda, because as a straight black man, you are being overlooked, you are being ignored. But if you are a black man that puts a wig on, then your life somehow is more valuable than black women and black men.
I've noticed also too, if you're a homosexual man, you're more accepted in the corporate structure, especially if you're I want to be clear, if you're a feminine acting man, not if you're just a gay guy, and I guess they know or they don't know, but if you're a feminine acting guy, you definitely get more push compared to heterosexual. It's like you're penalized now for being heterosexual.
I think that all of that is strategic as well, because we go back to Section 8. We go back to all of these things that have wanted to remove the man. And any of us that have good sense, any of us that are educated, we know that if there was to ever be, let's just talk about the strategies of war. If there is to be a takeover, what do? They want to remove the strongest people. Who are the strongest? The men are the strongest. Once the masculinity, the strong men are removed, the women and the children are the weakest link. And that is what has happened in our society, because even when I look at my own situation and when I went on Dr. Phil, there was no man there to protect me. The only man that was there was a man in a wig telling me that he was a woman and what he was going to do for my children. So they removed the black man, the toxic masculinity, as they say, and have now replaced him with this infinite black man who, guess what? He's still stronger than me as a woman. So the women and the children are still the most vulnerable in this situation. And they have designed it where if you are a masculine black man, or you were to speak up or you say something, you be charged with a hate crime. So they've almost pushed men over into silence. And I just feel like it's a complete hostile takeover. I've watched several videos. I've studied sexual predators, being a survivor of sexual abuse myself as a child. And 95% of sexual predators say that they target children that do not have a father.
In regards to the sexual predator thing, was it a teenager or a man?
It was my older cousin. It was a teenager. I was 5 and he was 17.
That seems to be like the high rate of sexual abuse compared to the man-kid thing, you know?
Well, I mean, it's just so much. I think that we've really dropped the ball when it comes to protecting our children, because I think in our generation, a lot of us were forced into silence. Sexual abuse is not something that's new or just start happening. Pedophiles is not something new or just start happening. Maybe we didn't use the pedophiles. Maybe we called them Uncle Charlie or Uncle Chester or whatever. But, they've been touching on children for a very long time. A lot of us were touched as children and were told for the sake of kinship to be quiet. It was swept up under the rug. In the black church, we've seen it happen, and we've been told to be quiet and swept it up under the rug. And now what we see with this new LGBTQPIA plus children takeover is now happening in our government. And because we've been so used to just sweeping it up under the rug, we've been conditioned to believe that this is something that's normal, and none of us are speaking up. When in the world did we begin to identify children as a sexual preference? Because every letter under LGBTQIA is a sexual preference. Why and how is it acceptable today that we are to look at a child, especially school-age children, and identify them by a sexual preference?
For viewers unaware, can you explain in regards to the letter that identifies children as a sexual preference?
Well, anytime you hear them say LGBTQ children, right? We've heard this being thrown around a lot. All in our government, all in Congress, they're always talking about protect LGBTQ youth, protect LGBTQ children. But what is L? L is lesbian. That's a sexual preference, right? What is LB? What is B? B is bisexual. It's a sexual preference. So when you say LGBTQ children, and you are telling me that you are teaching this in grade school from pre-K all the way up to the 12th grade, you're telling me that I'm supposed to go to a school and look at a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old and say that this child is bisexual? Let's just talk about the reality of what is taking place. They now have Americans comfortable with identifying children as a sexual preference. And when children walk around wearing LGBTQ clothing, they are now walking advertisements for sexual preference.
So, after being, I know you're kind of in government circles, right? Has anybody slipped up and what is the rationale behind this, bro? What is the point of it? That's the whole point. What?
The point is that they have the point is that this is another money grab. This is all about money, because when you talk about giving children hormones, and when you talk about puberty blockers, and when you talk about performing sexual transitioning surgery, all this is about money.
Industry. So they're building a new economy.
So it's another form of medical apartheid for a certain group of people. It's just all about money.